Hey guys, tonight we're heading somewhere grim. A world of sickness, beatings, and whatever passed for dinner back then. This is the real Middle Ages. No glittering armor, no gallant knights, no heroic quests. Just filth, frostbite, and the constant stench of something dying nearby. Welcome to Why You Wouldn't Survive a Day as a Medieval Stable Boy. Because if you think a bad job today is soul-crushing, imagine waking up next to a farting mule on a bed of moldy hay with your breakfast stolen by rats and your name replaced by boy. So before you get too cozy, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this strange little corner of quiet storytelling. And drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It's strangely comforting to know who else is drifting off with us around the world. Now get comfortable, let the day melt away, and we'll drift back together into the quiet corners of the past. Congratulations. You're the lowest life form with a job. You wake up on a rotting mound of hay that hasn't been changed since the last plague year. It squelches beneath you. That's not a metaphor. Something wet, unidentifiable, probably fungal, is soaking through your linen shirt and into your spine. You're not dead, but your limbs don't seem convinced. Your knees crack like old branches, and your elbow refuses to straighten. You slept curled in the fetal position because the mule took the only dry patch. He's still there, standing over you, farting with a kind of slow dignity, his tail occasionally brushing your face like it's trying to anoint you in shame. Your nose is the first victim of the morning. It fills with the aroma of fermented hay, animal sweat, and something that might be decomposing underneath the floorboards. Could be a dead rat. Could be your will to live. You blink crust from your eyes and sit up slowly, careful not to wake the stable master, who sleeps like a dead man in the corner loft, surrounded by empty jugs and even emptier ambitions. The rooster hasn't even started screaming yet, but your shift has already begun. Not that anyone calls it a shift. That would imply it ends. You rub your eyes with the back of your wrist, which is already streaked with grime. Your nails are black, not painted, just caked. You smell like a mixture of damp straw, old sweat, and hoof grease, which in medieval society is what we call employable. There is no mirror here, but if there were, it would probably shatter out of sympathy. Your hair is matted, your breath could kill a priest, and your eyes look like they've seen too much for someone who's still technically a child. But stable boys don't get to be children. You're not a lad, you're labor. You pull on your tunic, which was once brown, but now carries the hue of despair and manure. It sticks to your back in cold patches. You step into your boots, still damp from yesterday, and likely housing a colony of something with legs. They squish. You say nothing. The floor creaks beneath you, a patchwork of mud, straw, and whatever the horses decided to contribute overnight. Your feet have long since stopped caring. The first task is simple. Survive the walk to the outer stalls without getting bitten, kicked, or emotionally destroyed. You fail immediately. One of the geldings kicks the door as you pass, just to remind you he could end your life at any moment. You bow slightly. Respect is mandatory. You greet the animals in a quiet mumble, not because they care, but because it's the only conversation you'll have today that doesn't involve yelling or spitting. The stable itself is an architectural miracle, a structure somehow made entirely of holes. Cold air whistles through the cracks in the walls. You're not indoors. You're just outside with extra steps. A thin line of light slips through a gap in the roof and lands directly on the pile of spoiled oats you're about to feed to animals that outrank you socially. You reach for the pitchfork. It's splintered, crooked, and likely cursed. Your hands already sting from yesterday's blisters. You've learned to grip with the palms and push from the shoulders. You've also learned that no one cares if it hurts. As you muck the stalls, you hum to yourself. Not because you're happy, but because it keeps your jaw from clenching so tightly that your molars crack. You scoop layers of old straw, fresh dung, and God knows what into a wheelbarrow that leans left like it's given up too. A rat scurries out from under the feed bin. You don't scream. You apologize. You're in its home, after all. The stablemaster coughs awake somewhere in the loft. That means you have about 7 minutes before he starts shouting. You use them wisely. You gather the broken buckets, stack them near the water trough, and spit in your palms before lifting the saddle from the drying rack. It's still damp, still stinks, and still heavier than your little brother, who's now the family favorite because he got assigned to the chicken coop instead. You hear footsteps. Fast ones. Heavy ones. One of the apprentice knights is coming. That means you're about to get blamed for something, whether it's your fault or not. You stand straighter, eyes down, mouth shut. He stops, sneers, points at the feed trough, and mutters something about laziness and pig brains. Then he smacks the back of your head, not hard, just enough to remind you where you stand. Below him, below the horses, possibly below the lice. You nod, because that's safer than speaking. You grab the bucket. You do the work. Because here in the stable you're not a person. You're a shadow that shovels. A ghost with chores. You are the lowest life form with a job. And the day hasn't even started yet. You try to stretch, but your body refuses. Your back is a twisted rope of tension, and your legs feel like they've been packed in ice. Every joint pops like wet firewood as you shift in the straw, a soundless groan leaking from your cracked lips. Your hands are numb. Your spine protests. Your shoulders feel like they belong to someone twice your age. The damp has gotten into everything. The wood, the hay, the air, your bones. You don't rise so much as unfold, stiffly, like parchment that's been left in a puddle overnight. Your tunic creaks as you move. That's not an exaggeration. It's so caked with grime, sweat, and things you've stopped identifying that the fibers have formed a crust. You could probably snap off a sleeve and use it as a weapon. You try brushing off the straw stuck to your chest, but succeed only in peeling off a scab. The cloth grinds against your ribs like burlap dipped in gravel. Somewhere along the hem, mold is forming, a gentle green halo that smells like wet bread and regret. Your skin itches constantly. Not just a light tickle, but the maddening, crawling kind of itch that makes you want to claw your body open and let the vermin fall out. You scratch at your chest and come away with dried blood under your fingernails. You dig at your scalp until flakes of skin rain down like ash. You lift your tunic and find bite marks on your stomach. Small, red, inflamed. You are no longer just a boy. You are a buffet. The fleas have claimed you, and by the looks of it, they're winning. The corner of the stable they assigned you isn't really a corner at all. It's the slope where the rainwater pools before seeping into the dirt floor when it storms, which it did all night. The space turns into a swamp of horse piss, hay juice, and thin brown mud that smells like fermented misery. Your blanket is soaked. Your straw bed is wet in ways straw shouldn't be wet. Your boots, placed carefully upside down to avoid the rats, are now full of water, and something that squirmed when you checked. There's no sun yet, just a gray smear leaking through the slats in the stable walls. You press your hand against the wood, hoping for warmth, but the boards are slick and sweating. The air hangs heavy, with the scent of manure and rot, and something sharp and sour that might be sickness, might be mold, might just be you. The horses are restless. You can hear them shifting in their stalls, huffing steam into the cold, stomping their hooves in the same rhythm as your heartbeat, slow, then faster, then angry. You reach for your cloak, but it's not there. Someone took it. Again. Probably one of the older boys. The ones who laugh like hyenas and smell like feet. You find a rag instead. A burlap feed sack with a hole in it. You wrap it around your shoulders. It doesn't help. Nothing helps. You scratch again, harder this time. Your armpit is red and swollen. You think it's from the lice, or maybe the rash, or maybe the rash made by the lice. It doesn't matter. The priest says, suffering builds character. The stable master says nothing builds faster than guilt. You don't have time for theology. You're already behind. You step into your boots and wince. The leather has shrunk. Your toes curl against each other like they're afraid. You know the blisters are bleeding again, but there's no point checking. You're not allowed to sit until the stalls are clean and the feed is out. You're not allowed to eat until someone remembers you exist. And you're not allowed to complain because complaining is a sin, a weakness, and a luxury, all rolled into one. So, you grit your teeth, ignore the itch, the stink, the cold, the blood, and start moving toward the horses. Behind you, the mule grunts, the rain drips, and the fleas settle in for another long day. Feeding time isn't about the horses eating. It's about you not getting beaten. The sacks of oats are where they always are, stuffed under the overhang near the eastern wall, damp from last night's rain and crawling with a kind of gray-green fuzz that shouldn't be on anything living or dead. You pull one open, and the smell hits you like a slap. Sweet rot and mouse piss. You gag, cover your mouth with the edge of your tunic, and remind yourself that if the horses don't eat, someone's going to notice, and it won't be the oats on trial. It'll be you. You grab the first bucket. It's wood, cracked, bound with rusted iron hoops and splinters just waiting for skin. You fill it anyway. Every scoop of feed is a gamble. Some oats are whole, some half dissolved, and some crawling. You shake the bucket, try to stir the rot to the bottom, and pray the horses are too hungry to care. You carry the first load to the stall of Sir Harrow's prized warhorse, a beast the color of smoke with a temper worse than any man in the castle. They say he's bitten 3 stable hands and kicked one into permanent silence. You believe it. You enter the stall with your body turned sideways, eyes down, palms open, the medieval version of begging for mercy. The horse watches you, head low, ears flat, lips twitching like he's deciding whether to eat or maim you. You mutter something that sounds vaguely soothing. He takes a step forward. You take one back. You set the bucket down slowly, praying he lunges for the food, not your face. No such luck. He snaps, fast and deliberate, teeth bared. You throw yourself sideways and hit the post hard enough to see stars. The bucket spills. Half the oats land in the mud. You scramble to gather what you can, hands scooping wet clumps into the cracked bucket, trying not to cry or bleed. Crying is weakness. Bleeding is bait. You pour what's left into the trough and step away. The stallion finally moves, snorting once before dipping his head to eat. His flank brushes your arm as he passes. You flinch like it's a threat. It probably is. You move on to the next stall, then the next. Every horse has a name, a pedigree, a story. You don't. You're boy, or you there, or, when they're feeling generous, that thing in the straw. The mares are slightly less murderous but twice as jumpy. One kicks the wall when you get too close. Another tries to bolt as you open the door. You manage to wedge the bucket inside and slam it shut before she can trample you. Your heart hasn't slowed down in over an hour. The foals are easier, if only because they're smaller. They don't bite yet. They just shiver when you touch them, like even they know your hands are cursed. You brush crumbs from their lips and whisper nonsense to calm them. You like them. They haven't learned to hate you yet. Halfway through the row, you run out of feed. The second sack is worse than the first. Mice have chewed holes through the bottom, and something black and slick scurries away when you lift it. You mix the oats with straw to stretch it, then with water, then with lies. If the Lord asks why his horses are off their feed, the answer will not be, because you made a child serve moldy oats in broken buckets. The answer will be, because the boy is lazy, or because the boy is stupid, or, if they're feeling especially poetic, because God doesn't favor the weak. You are not the caretaker. You are the scapegoat in rags. If a horse limps, it's your fault. If one gets sick, it's your fault. If a saddle's out of place, or a hoof goes uncleaned, or a stall isn't swept properly, you'll find yourself on your knees in front of the steward, explaining how you managed to fail at the simplest job on earth, feeding animals that already live better than you. You finish the last stall and wipe your hands on your tunic, smearing feed dust and horse spit across your chest. You're sweating, shivering, and covered in bites. The sun isn't even overhead yet, and the horses are the only ones who've eaten. It's time to muck the stalls, which is a fancy way of saying you're about to shovel filth until your spine feels like snapped rope and your lungs forget what clean air is. The morning light creeps through the stable slats in long, dusty shafts, making everything look prettier than it should, until you take a single step and your foot disappears into a puddle of something that squelches around your ankle and soaks instantly into your boot. You know what it is. You don't say it out loud. Words give things power, and this needs no help. The floor isn't a floor anymore. It's a swamp made of horse piss, churned straw, and layers of excrement compressed into something that resembles wet bread and smells like ammonia's older, angrier cousin. It sloshes as you walk, thick and cold and clinging. The rats, at least, are mostly still, curled up in corners, drowned overnight or poisoned by the feed. Their wet fur plastered flat, eyes glazed, and mouths slightly open like they died mid-complaint. You shovel around them. You've seen too many to flinch now. You're not squeamish anymore. You're something lower. You grab the pitchfork. Its handle is splintered, the tines bent from years of grudging service. And the moment you stab it into the first stall's mess, it snaps clean in two with the saddest little crack you've ever heard. You stare at the broken wood in your hand, then at the mountain of muck in front of you. It stares back. You drop the fork and pick up a half-rotted shovel instead, the one with a blade like a flattened spoon and a handle that wobbles like a drunk at a feast. It will do. It has to. The first scoop is heavier than you expect. The second is worse. By the third, your arms start to burn. You try not to breathe, but that only makes you dizzy. And now you're inhaling through your mouth, which is worse, because the taste settles on your tongue like a warm fog of barn rot and fermented waste. The barrel you're filling groans under the weight. It was leaking last week. It still is. A small stream of brown liquid is trickling from the base, soaking your pant leg and leaving a trail behind you as you move it from stall to stall like some medieval sewage ghost. The horses don't help. They watch you with eyes that know you're beneath them. Some flick their tails and spatter you with yesterday's leftovers. One lifts its tail and makes a fresh contribution while you're right behind it, and you don't move fast enough. You never do. It hits your shoulder, warm and direct, and slides down your back like a cruel joke. You don't scream. You just mutter a prayer that even God would refuse to hear. Then comes the sound you hate most. Leather boots on straw, too light to be a guard, too heavy to be another stable hand. You know who it is, the apprentice knight. 18, smug, and convinced he's descended from Julius Caesar. He strides past your stall with that half grin and no intention of stopping. You avert your eyes. You lower your head. You keep shoveling. He pauses. You hear the scrape of metal, the sound of a lid coming off a chamber pot. And before you can move, speak, or beg, the contents are dumped directly over the edge of the stall and onto your head. It hits with a splash that soaks your hair, your face, your neck. The warmth is immediate, the smell even more so. You stand perfectly still, like movement might somehow make it worse. It doesn't. The knight laughs as he walks off, says something clever. You don't remember the words, just the tone. Casual cruelty, practiced and bored. You wipe your eyes with the back of your sleeve, smearing filth into the corners. You do not cry. You've used up all your tears. What's left now is silence, and a long afternoon of scooping waste from creatures that live cleaner, sleep warmer, and eat better than you. By midday, your hands are blistered and raw. The barrel has collapsed in on itself. Your back is locked in a crooked arch, but the stalls are clean. For now. You sit in the corner for one breath, then two, then the stable master yells your name, and you're up again, shovel in hand. Because in this world, there's no nobility in labor. There's just the dignity you pretend you still have, and the piss you're still wearing. Your hands are a disease now. They weren't always. Once, they were small and soft, and probably held a toy or a crust of bread with hope. But that was before. Before the muck, the freezing nights, the endless parade of blisters that pop, peel, fester, and repeat like a grim little ritual between you and your own skin. Now, they're raw things, scabbed, cracked, filthy, and whatever color they used to be has long since given way to the gray-brown hue of medieval decay. Your nails are black, not with polish, not with purpose, but with layers of manure, rot, and guilt that no one ever taught you how to clean. There's no soap, no lye, no salt, not even ashes today, just a stone basin of horse trough water, gone murky with hay fragments and floating insect bodies. You dunk your hands into the icy sludge anyway because the bridles aren't going to scrub themselves, and the stable master already asked once. Well, asked is generous. He shouted from across the yard and threw a bridle at your head. You caught it mid-air because you've learned to flinch in the right direction. The leather is stiff and crusted. It smells like mildew and something worse, sour, wet, almost like an open wound that's learned to ferment. You lay it across your lap and begin scrubbing with the only rag you're allowed to use, a strip of linen that was white 2 years ago, and now carries the scent of old pus and forgotten crimes. You don't know what it was used for before. You don't ask. You just scrub. Each motion makes your wrists throb. They're red and puffed up like boiled sausages, hot to the touch and splitting at the creases. Blisters have formed beneath old blisters. Your knuckles crack every time you clench, bleeding just enough to sting but not enough for sympathy. You try to move gently, but the leather doesn't care, and neither does the rag, and neither does the world. The strap slips from your grip and falls into the mud. You reach down, grab it, smear more filth into the wounds, and go back to scrubbing. You used to look at your hands and think they were yours. Not anymore. They belong to the job now, to the horses, to the man with the whip who says you're too slow, too soft, too stupid. You work until the skin doesn't feel like skin. Just another layer of grime that exists to protect the bones beneath. Gloves, a fantasy. Those are for people with fathers who matter and boots that fit. You once tried wrapping your hands in rags. The stable master laughed and called you princess. You haven't tried since. Your fingers twitch involuntarily, muscles seizing in protest. The chill from the water is sinking into your joints now, turning every task into a slow, grinding negotiation between pain and obligation. You pull a splinter from your thumb with your teeth. It tastes like pine and iron. You suck the blood away, then return to the bridle like nothing happened. Because nothing did. Not in this place. By midday, your hands are more wound than limb. You've cleaned 3 bridles, half a saddle, and a bit ring with rust, so sharp it sliced your palm without warning. You wrapped it with a strip of your sleeve and pretended not to notice when the stain spread. The horses snort in their stalls. One of them kicks the wall hard enough to rattle the tools on the hooks behind you. You don't flinch this time. You're too tired. The bucket of water is black now. The rag is falling apart. Your hands are shaking and there's pus forming under one fingernail. You flex it once, watch the pressure build, and bite your tongue before you scream. You can't afford to scream. That would be weakness. That would be noise. That would be reason enough to assign you night watch again. So, you keep scrubbing, keep bleeding, keep whispering to yourself that tomorrow might be easier, even though you know it won't be, even though this is your life now. A slow erosion, starting at the fingertips. You're not cleaning the bridles. You're disappearing into them. and no one even notices. The rat gets you first. You don't even see it coming. You're crouched by the feed bins, scooping out the last handfuls of moldy oats for the brood mare, when something small and fast darts from the shadows and sinks its teeth into the soft web of flesh between your thumb and index finger. You yelp and jerk back too late. It's already gone, vanishing into the hay with a flick of greasy fur and the stench of disease. You look down. Blood wells up in a tiny red crescent, and your whole hand starts to throb in rhythm with your pulse. You press your mouth to it instinctively, then regret it. God only knows what that thing was chewing before it decided to chew you. You wrap it with a strip of straw and the corner of your tunic, which smells like manure and mildew and feels like wet sandpaper. It sticks. You squeeze your fist shut until the bleeding stops, or until the pain folds into the rest of the background agony you've learned to carry like a second skin. There's no first aid, no bandages, no kind old woman with herbs and honey to make it better. The stable master says a rat bite builds character. You suspect it builds fever. Then the donkey lands a blow. It's the shaggy gray one, with the mean eyes and a streak of hostility so deep it might have been born in hell. You've been told to brush him today, which is like being told to polish a bear's teeth. You step into his stall slow, gentle, offering a piece of wilted carrot like a peace treaty. He accepts it, then without warning swings his back leg with precision and rage directly into your thigh. You crumple like a drop sack of barley. The pain is deep, dull, blooming out across your leg in waves that make your vision flicker. You don't scream, you don't cry. You just lie there for a moment, trying not to throw up. Eventually, you crawl out of the stall and sit in the corner on a pile of burlap that smells faintly of urine and despair. You press your palm to your leg and feel the bruise forming like a second kneecap. The donkey returns to chewing his hay, utterly unbothered, as if nothing happened. You'd be angry, but you're too tired. Besides, he's not even the worst of them. That honor belongs to the dog. The Lord's prized hunting hound is technically not supposed to be in the stable. He belongs in the kennels, where he can terrorize rabbits and bark at wind with the other well-fed brutes. But someone left the door open, and now he's trotting through the straw like he owns the place, tail high, eyes sharp, and jaw twitching with anticipation. You try to ignore him. You keep your head down. But he's already scented the blood on your hand and the weakness in your posture. He lunges without a sound. His paw rakes across your forearm, claws slicing through fabric and skin like parchment. You shout this time, a raw, involuntary noise as you fall backward into a pile of manure-soaked hay. The dog snarls, then trots away like he's done something noble. Your arm stings. You look at the wound. 3 lines of red, already swelling. The skin around it is hot. You cover it with the same piece of straw that's wrapped around your hand, adding another layer to your growing collection of temporary solutions to permanent problems. Your whole body is trembling now. Maybe from cold, maybe from blood loss, maybe from the creeping understanding that none of this is going to heal properly. You think about fevers, about festering wounds, about the boy last summer who died after getting kicked in the ribs and refusing to lie down. You don't know his name anymore, no one does. You haven't even had breakfast yet. The sun is still crawling its way up the sky. Your stomach is empty. Your hands are filthy. Your leg aches. Your arm burns. Your heart beats faster than it should, and there's a buzzing in your ears, like the world is too loud even in silence. You close your eyes for a moment and breathe through your teeth, and then you stand. Because the horses still need water, because the saddles still need oiling, because the stable master will ask where you've been, and because, in the grand ledger of medieval life, 3 fresh wounds before sunrise doesn't earn you pity. It just proves you're doing your job. Breakfast is not served. It arrives like everything else in the stable, late, cold, and vaguely threatening. You find it where you left it last night, wrapped in a bit of cloth that used to be white, now the color of rain, soaked ashes and horse drool. Inside is your daily ration. One wedge of bread, so stale it could double as a blunt weapon, and a small cup of ale that smells like someone's regrets were left to ferment in a boot. You don't eat at a table. There are no tables. There are no chairs, no plates, no cutlery, no napkins, no dignity. You crouch behind a hay bale near the back wall of the stable, half hidden in the shadows and fully hidden from the stable master's line of sight. Not because he minds you eating. He minds the fact that you're not currently working while doing it. Once he sees your jaw moving, he starts yelling. And when he starts yelling, things get thrown. You learn that lesson after losing your last piece of bread to the dirt and the sole of his boot. The bread is an insult. Not even to you, just to the concept of food. It's gray on the bottom and dry on the edges, but the middle has managed to retain just enough dampness to encourage the formation of something green and fuzzy. You break it open and stare at the mold, weighing your options. You could scrape it off with your fingernail, but the fingernail is still caked with yesterday's muck and possibly rat blood. You could eat around it, but the unaffected part tastes like gravel and ash. You could throw it away, but then you'd have nothing. You bite it anyway. The crust doesn't crack so much as grind. Your jaw aches with the effort. You chew slowly, methodically, like a prisoner counting seconds between the blows. It tastes of yeast, mildew, and faint panic. You chase it with the ale, which is warm, sour, and undeniably alive. You feel it fizz on your tongue like it's trying to escape. You drink it all in one go, gag once, then sit very still until the dizziness passes. Behind you, the horses shift in their stalls. The mule groans. Somewhere in the rafters, a bird coughs, a dry little rattle that sounds like a joke no one laughs at. The hay beneath you is damp. It always is. It smells like the floor of an old cellar that flooded 3 decades ago and was never drained. Your boots sink slightly as you shift your weight. You try to enjoy the quiet, but your stomach doesn't believe in peace. It grumbles angrily, demanding more. You pat it gently like you're consoling a child. There is no more. You glance at the saddle hanging on the wall near the door. It's old and cracked and stained with things you don't name anymore. It smells like oiled leather and horses and dust. You wonder, briefly, genuinely, what it would be like to chew it. Just a corner. Just to give your teeth something to do that doesn't taste like rot. You get halfway to standing before you stop yourself. That's how you know the hunger's winning. You're starting to consider objects over edibles. Again, somewhere outside, the chapel bell rings. Not for you. It rings for the nobility in their high towers and warm breakfast rooms, where bread is soft and eggs are cooked and no one has to worry about mold unless it's on cheese that costs more than your yearly labor. The bell tolls like a reminder. You're not part of that world. You're the thing that scrubs it clean from below. You finish the bread in 3 more bites, each one harder than the last. You chew slowly, fighting the urge to spit, swallow, and force it down with what's left of the ale. Your tongue feels scraped. Your teeth feel loose. You lick your lips and taste nothing. Breakfast, such as it is over. You wipe your hands on your tunic and stand slowly, knees aching, stomach still growling. You glance at the horses, the bridle rack, the half-mucked stalls, and know what comes next. There is no pause, no digestion, just more work. Always more work. And maybe, if you're lucky, a strip of dried turnip later, to hold you over until dinner, which you already know will be worse. The smell is no longer something you notice. It's something you are. You don't wear it so much as exude it, like heat from a fire or steam from a bog. It clings to you, thick and warm, soaked into every fiber of your tunic, every hair on your body, every breath you take. You've scrubbed, at least on the days you could find a spare bucket of water and a scrap of cloth that wasn't already black with grime. But there's no scrubbing this out. This isn't dirt. It's identity. You smell like a blend of creatures and decay. Sweat, but not the fresh kind from a hard run. This is old sweat, aged in layers beneath your arms and down your back, sealed in by wool that hasn't been washed since midsummer. There's the acrid tang of horse piss, sharp and eye-watering, fused into the soles of your boots and soaked into the cuffs of your sleeves from every time you've knelt too close to a stall. Add to that the sweet rot of hay that's been damp for too long, a scent like mold mixed with autumn death, and the occasional whiff of something worse, something sour and meat-like, that might be rat, or might be you. You pass people in the village, and they flinch before they know why. It starts with a wrinkle of the nose, then the glance, then the full-body recoil as their mind catches up with their senses. No one says anything. They just move away, like instinct tells them, this smell is contagious, dangerous, like if they get too close, they'll also start to rot. One baker waved you off with a ladle once, told you to stand downwind if you wanted day-old bread. You weren't even facing him. Even the animals are wary. Dogs bark when you approach. Chickens scatter. One pig actually tried to climb back into its own pen just to get away from you. You didn't blame it. You probably would have too, if you had a pen of your own to crawl into. Instead, you walk the same path every morning, trailing your own scent like a curse behind you, knowing full well that it doesn't wash off, it doesn't fade, and it doesn't improve. It's in your skin now, in your pores. You've scratched until you bled, trying to get it out, raked your fingernails across your scalp until the skin peeled, only to realize the dirt goes deeper. Under your nails, behind your ears, between your toes. Your breath smells like sour oats and rotting ale. Your hands smell like hoof oil and blister pus. And when you lift your shirt to wipe sweat from your face, the cloud that rises is enough to make the horses shift away in their stalls. You've stopped caring. That's the worst part. There was a time when you noticed, when you winced at your own stench, when you tried to stand downwind from the others, when you dreamed of warm water and soap made from something nicer than animal fat, but that time passed. You're not just used to it now, you're shaped by it. The way your shoulders hunch when you pass others, the way you breathe through your mouth when speaking to someone clean, the way you keep your arms close, your chin low, always smaller, always apologizing for your presence. There was a day, 2 weeks ago, a month, when you saw your reflection in the drinking trough. Your face was half shadowed by grime, your eyes dull, and the water rippled when you exhaled. You leaned closer, looked harder, and realized the smell wasn't separate anymore. It was part of your outline, a kind of aura. You smelled like survival in its least flattering form. Not brave, not bold, just rank. Now, you barely flinch when a beetle crawls across your boot. You don't blink when the squire pinches his nose dramatically as he walks by. You just keep moving. You haul the feed, clean the stalls, drag the buckets, and sweat through every layer of filth-soaked fabric like it's your birthright. Because it is. You're a stable boy, not a person, not to them. You're a function, a smell, a warning sign that says, stand back. This one belongs to the animals. And deep down, you know the smell won't ever leave. Even if you were given a bath, a bar of soap, a miracle, even if you left this place tomorrow and never returned, it would follow you. It already has. The tack room smells like leather, mildew, and something faintly metallic that might be blood or rust or both. It's dark too, lit only by a crooked window and a stub of tallow that drips more wax than it offers light. You've been sent to clean the Lord's tack again, which is less a job and more a warning. These are not your tools. These are sacred objects of noble violence, touched by the hands of men who kill from horseback and never look down. You enter like a thief, careful not to breathe too loud near the polished reins or creak the floorboards beneath the bridles. If you leave so much as a smudge, you'll answer for it. The first saddle is already molding. You run your fingers along the underside and feel the soft fuzz of decay blooming like moss after rain. You fetch a rag from the pile, stiff with dried grime, and begin scrubbing in tight circles. The leather groans. You spit on it to loosen the rot, then use the edge of your sleeve to wipe away the smear. It works. Sort of. The mold fades to a dark stain, but you know it'll be back tomorrow. Like everything else in this place, it only pretends to go away. You move on to the bit and bridle. The metal's cold and flaking, the taste of rust bleeding onto your tongue as you lick your finger to wet the cloth. You scrub until your knuckles throb. You press harder. You imagine the Lord Stallion biting down on it mid-charge, foam flying from its mouth as it tramples some peasant unlucky enough to be in the way. You wonder, in a quiet flicker of thought you're not supposed to have, if the horse knows it's doing his work for him, if it minds. The spurs are next. Ornate, wicked things, forged for ceremony and pain. They're rusted around the edges, dulled by time and neglect, and still sharp enough to make your fingers bleed if you grab them wrong. You polish them with a rag and the side of your tunic, pressing until the metal starts to shine. You don't get praise for this. You don't even get noticed. But if they're dirty, if there's even a fleck of old blood dried in the groove, you'll get more than a bruise for it. Halfway through the third set, the squire wanders in. He's bored, which is never good. Boredom in the hands of someone who doesn't bleed for their mistakes is a weapon. He's younger than most, but twice as cruel. The kind that practices sword, flourishes in mirrors, and thinks the war is waiting for his arrival. He tosses a stirrup into the air like it's a toy and asks if you're enjoying your day. You don't answer. That's safer. Then he drops it. Not on the floor, on your foot. It lands with a solid, unmerciful thud across your bare toes, the edge catching just below the nail. You feel the pain before you hear yourself inhale. It's hot, fast, blooming outward from the point of impact like fire. You don't scream. You don't move. You just suck in your breath and look down. Blood is already soaking through the hole in your boot. Your toenail has turned a dark, promising shade of purple. It throbs in time with your heartbeat. The squire laughs, says you're lucky it wasn't his sword, then tells you to be grateful. He doesn't wait for a response, just strolls back out into the courtyard, like he's done something benevolent. You nod after him, because that's what's expected. Gratitude is the only thing they want from you, even when they're offering pain. You sit down when he's gone, foot tucked beneath you, biting the inside of your cheek to keep from swearing. You press the saddle cloth against the wound and hold it there, hard, until the bleeding slows. Then you go back to work. Because the tack isn't going to clean itself. Because no one cares about your foot. Because you still have 3 more saddles and a breastplate to polish before midday. And if they're not gleaming, the stable master will make sure you remember why you're here. You are not a boy. You are a buffer between nobility and the grime they create. You clean their filth and thank them for the opportunity. You bleed on their gear and pretend it's polish. And if you limp tomorrow, you'd best find a way to do it faster. You're not invisible. You're worse than that. You're visible in all the wrong ways. The kind of visible that invites mockery, kicks, and pity glances from people who know they're above you. You walk through the courtyard holding a broom that's half splinters and mostly broken, dragging it behind you like it's your title and rank wrapped in straw. You're ordered to sweep the mud, which is a task with all the logic of wringing out the sea, but you nod when told. You always nod. There are only so many ways to say yes without saying anything at all. The other stable boys stand along the wall pretending not to watch you. They whisper when you pass. Not quiet enough. You hear your name twisted into a new insult every week, like a game. You've been mule breath, hay head, straw skin. This week it's foot rot, thanks to the stirrup incident, and they repeat it like it's poetry, laughing until they snort. You don't look at them. That's part of the game too. If you look, you're playing, and once you're playing, they get to win. The milkmaids offer a different kind of cruelty, softer, but no less cutting. They look at you like a bruised apple, something sad and small and better kept at a distance. One of them, the younger one with the braid and the freckled nose, gave you a bit of cheese once, just a crumb wrapped in cloth. You thought maybe it meant something, that maybe she'd seen you, really seen you. The next day she handed bread to one of the squires and smiled with her whole face. You understood then. You weren't chosen. You were pitied. There's a difference. The knights don't look at you at all. You could be furniture, or the manure pile. One of them rode past you once and flicked a bit of pastry crust from his glove, and it landed in your hair. He didn't notice. Or if he did, he didn't care. They speak in loud voices about glory and blood and God's favor, while you crouch in the muck, cleaning their tack with your sleeves and breathing through your mouth to keep the smell out. Their war horses get better food than you, better bedding too. Today you've been told to sweep the front courtyard, not the side alley where the dung carts wait. The front, where everyone passes, where everything important happens. You know what this means. This is a stage, and you are the act. You start sweeping, pushing muck from puddle to puddle, scraping stone that's already been eroded by decades of other boys just like you, and probably worse. The wind picks up. The rain, which had threatened all morning, finally starts falling in sharp, impatient drops. You don't stop. You can't. The broom squeaks when you press it too hard. You can feel your already wet sleeves soaking further as water runs down your arms. You're soaked within minutes, not just damp, soaked through to the skin, to the bones. Your tunic clings to you like cold hands. Your boots slosh. Your fingers are stiff and red, and your shoulders ache from the constant push of straw against stone. The boys are watching from the archway now, arms crossed, dry. One of them mimes your sweeping with a dramatic frown. The others laugh. You keep your head down. You smile. Not because you find anything funny, but because smiling is safer. A blank face is an invitation. A grimace is a challenge. But a smile says you're harmless, that you know your place, that you're not going to snap. Not today. So you smile. With teeth that haven't been brushed in months, and lips that taste like rainwater and blood from where you bit them too hard this morning. You smile while the squire rides past and splashes mud across your knees. You smile when the broom handle splinters in your hand. You smile as you pick up the broken end and keep sweeping, pushing puddles that return the moment you leave them. You're not clean. You're not dry. You're not respected. But you're still working. Because no matter how hard they laugh, someone's got to clean up after them. And for as long as they let you wear this uniform, rags, shame, and silence, it's going to be you. The sun has climbed directly above the stable and now hangs there like a punishment. It's not just warm. It's the kind of heat that feels like it's pressing against your skull from the inside, steaming your thoughts, boiling your sweat before it can leave your pores. The straw roof above your head does nothing. The stable walls trap the air in like an oven, and the scent of hot manure, body odor, and something sour that might be rotting grain wraps around you like a second skin. Your tunic clings, your scalp prickles, and your breath comes with a taste. Everything feels slow and heavy, like the world itself is exhaling through your mouth. The flies are everywhere, clouds of them, in your ears, in your eyes, crawling across the back of your neck like they were invited. You swat, but it's no use. They know you. You're a stable boy, a buffet of damp, sticky flesh and sweet old sweat. They land on your wounds. They crawl across the pus on your knuckle. They dive for the crust of dried blood around your rat bite. You gave up trying to keep them off an hour ago. Now you just try to keep them out of your mouth. The horses are no happier. They stomp and whinny, shaking their heads at the heat, flicking their tails like whips. You're told to bathe the Lord's favorite mare, the glossy brown one with the temper of a cursed widow and eyes that gleam like she knows what you fear. She's pacing in her stall, ears pinned, breath short. You gather the bucket, the rag, the wooden brush, and lead her out slowly, quietly, whispering nonsense, as if that might keep her calm. It won't. But it gives you something to do with your voice, besides screaming. The trough sits under the sycamore tree, where the shade has long since surrendered to the weight of the day. The water is thick with green scum, little bubbles of something alive popping on the surface. You fill the bucket anyway, because it's all there is, and lift it with both hands, the wooden handle biting into your palms. You walk back, sloshing water down your legs, and reach the mare just as she decides she's had enough of waiting. She jerks her head, almost knocking the bucket from your grip, and stamps the dirt hard enough to rattle your ribs. You try to start with her neck. That's always safer. You dip the rag and squeeze it out, letting it run down her shoulder. She twitches. You do it again, then again. You reach for her flank with the brush, gentle, careful. She turns slightly, lifts a back leg. You pause. She pauses. You hope. She explodes. The bucket goes flying first, knocked from your hand and sent spinning across the yard. Then her hoof connects with your hip, sharp, fast, full of spite. You go down like a sack of wet grain, pain ripping through your side as your knees hit the ground and your vision tilts sideways. The world shrinks to heat, dust, and the sting of scraped skin. You gasp, then cough, and dust fills your throat like punishment. You curl in on yourself and try not to move. She walks away, calm again, head high, tail flicking. A servant rushes over to catch her. You're not his concern. You lie there a moment longer, trying to convince your body to bend again. Your fingers scrabble in the dirt, searching for the bucket. You find it dented, half full of water, that now smells distinctly like something crawled in and died. You haul yourself to your feet, slowly, biting your lip until you taste copper. You collect the bucket. You limp after the horse. No one helps. No one asks. The stable master glares from the barn and gestures vaguely toward the brush. You nod and go back to scrubbing. Because the mare may have kicked you. The flies may be chewing your ears. The sun may be boiling your blood from the inside. But the job isn't finished, and neither, unfortunately, are you. It starts with a little itch behind your ear. Nothing serious. Nothing new. You've lived your life itchy. Bedbug bites, flea nibbles, hay rashes, damp rot behind the knees. But this is different. This one spreads. It crawls from behind your ear to the base of your neck, then across your scalp like a slow, invisible fire. You dig your nails into your skin, scratching until you draw blood, thinking maybe it's just heat rash or sweat or some new fungus the straw gave birth to overnight. But by midday, your entire head is alive. Not metaphorically, not poetically, literally alive. You feel the movement, the tickle of tiny bodies scuttling between strands of hair like they own you. You scratch harder, your nails catch on scabs you didn't know you had. You rake at the skin until your temples sting, and your fingers come away lined with flakes and blood. The itching doesn't stop. It gets worse. It pulses. It whispers. That's when you realize it's lice. Not horse lice. Not the kind that crawl through manes and tails and get washed away with vinegar and spite. Human lice. Head lice. Stable boy lice. The kind that jumps from one filthy scalp to another through shared blankets, dirty straw, or, most likely, a tunic borrowed from the other lad, after yours tore in half last week, while you were hauling water buckets. He told you it was clean. He also picks at his teeth with chicken bones, and once tried to cure his cough by drinking pond water. You want to scream, you want to shave your head, soak your skull in boiling lye, and disappear into the river. Instead, you scratch. That's all you can do. Scratch, and hope it doesn't drive you mad. The priest says it's penance. You passed him on the way to the well, scratching like a dog with a death wish, and he looked at you like he'd just solved a riddle. Suffering cleans the soul, he said, like that was helpful. The Lord gives you trials to burn away your sins. You didn't reply. You were too busy trying not to rip your own scalp off in front of the chickens. You think it's hell. Not the fire and brimstone kind, but the slow kind. The kind with no end and no spectacle, just the relentless need to claw at yourself until there's nothing left but a twitching, bloodied echo of a boy who once dreamed of wearing shoes that fit. You try to wash. You try to scrub your hair in the horse trough with cold water and pine needles and a bar of waxy soap that smells like old cheese. You dunk your head. You rub until your arms shake. You press your forehead to the stone rim and pray for stillness. When you lift your head, the lice are still there. You feel them retreating, regrouping. You imagine them laughing. There's no remedy you can afford. The healer charges coin. You have none. The steward might help, if your family name meant anything. It doesn't. The kitchen girls whisper that vinegar works, but the only vinegar you have access to is the dribble at the bottom of the swill bucket, and you're not quite desperate enough to pour pig seasoning on your scalp. Not yet. You go back to work, because that's the rule. You scratch while you lift saddles. You scratch while you oil bridles. You scratch while brushing the Lord's stallion, and he snorts in disgust, not at your grooming, but at the cloud of dander and lice that seem to rise off your head like cursed steam. By evening, the bites are swollen. Your neck is raw. Your scalp stings every time you breathe. You lie in the straw trying not to move, because movement brings the itch, and the itch brings the rage, and the rage is what makes you cry, and crying is a waste of water. Tomorrow it will be worse. Tomorrow they'll multiply. Tomorrow you'll wake up with blood on your pillow and a chunk of hair stuck to your fingers. But tonight, you dig your nails in one last time, press your face into your arm, and whisper through clenched teeth the only prayer you still believe in. Make it stop. The comb breaks on the second pull. You knew it would. The teeth were already bent. Half of them snapped off last week when you were detangling the tail of the gray mare who hates everyone. The rest were holding on out of habit. You slide it once, through the warhorse's thick mane, and it cracks in your hand like old bone. The handle splinters. The teeth fall into the straw. The horse snorts, shifts, and nearly steps on your foot. You don't react. Not yet. You just stare down at the broken piece of wood in your palm, then glance at the brush hanging on the post. It's no better. Bristles splayed in every direction, clogged with hair, straw, and worse. Something wriggles in the center. A fat, slow flea, lazily tunneling through what might be horse dander or your own dried blood. You knock the brush against the wall. Nothing falls out. You slap it harder. Still there. The fleas, like you, are committed. You go in with your hands. You thread your fingers into the stallion's mane, separating the tangles as gently as you can, though your nails are cracked and your skin is raw from lice and lye and days without rest. The stallion doesn't like being touched, especially not by you. You've seen the look in his eyes, like he knows he could end you, and nothing would happen except someone else being sent in your place. You move slowly, talking to him under your breath, not because it helps, but because the silence makes him twitch. He's not a gentle beast. This is the Lord's war horse, the pride of the stables, fed better than you, brushed more often than you bathe, and pampered like a knight in velvet. He's also unpredictable. You don't know what sets him off. Some days it's a sound, some days it's a shadow, some days it's just the wind blowing wrong. Today, it's you. You don't see it coming. One moment you're untangling a knot behind his ear, your fingers sticky with sweat and oil. The next, he rears up like he's been struck by lightning. You stagger back, hands raised, but there's nowhere to run. The stall is too narrow. He twists midair, hooves flashing, and lands wrong. One of his back shoes snaps off, clattering against the wall like a bell toll. His weight slams down on the old wooden floorboards, and the support beam beside him, already cracked, already patched with a prayer and a rusted nail, shatters with a sound like the sky splitting open. The stall wall gives way. Dust and hay explode into the air. The horse bolts through the gap, kicking up chunks of timber, screaming like he's charging into battle. You throw yourself sideways and hit the dirt shoulder first, head ringing. You hear shouting. The stable master's voice. Heavy boots, the groan of wood settling into failure. They drag the stallion back within minutes. He's not hurt, just rattled. You're not hurt either. Not really. Just bruised and stunned and blinking straw out of your eyelashes while the world spins sideways. You sit up, and the stable master is already standing over you, red-faced and breathing hard, pointing at the broken beam like it was your idea. He doesn't ask what happened. He doesn't want to know. He slaps you. Not hard. Not like he wants to break something. Just hard enough to make the point that you're the reason the world collapses. That wood doesn't snap and horses don't rear and stalls don't fall apart unless you make them. You feel the sting bloom across your cheek and you nod. Because arguing would mean more slaps, and you've already lost enough today. He tells you to clean up the mess, then leaves. You look at the ruined stall, the mangled brush, the flea-bitten comb in pieces near your knees. You look at your hands, trembling and sticky, and then you get up. You sweep the wood. You shovel the straw. You straighten the wall with nails that bend and curses that don't help. And when it's done, when the stallion is back in place, chewing calmly like he didn't just destroy a corner of the world, you go back in, and you start brushing again, with your hands, because there's no comb, because you still have a job, because in this life, collapse doesn't end the work. It just means you're already late for the next disaster. You see him before he sees you. The apprentice knight, barely old enough to grow a beard, but already convinced the sun rises because he wills it. He's swaggering across the yard in armor, too polished for someone who's never seen a battlefield and too tight for someone who hasn't missed a meal in his life. He's chewing something, bread probably, and grinning like he just won a joust instead of waking up 5 minutes ago. His eyes are already looking for something to ruin. Today, they find you. You don't run. That would only make it worse. You just keep your head down, pretend to focus on scrubbing the rust from a stirrup with a rag so thin it barely counts as cloth. You pray he'll pass by, distracted by his own reflection or a passing kitchen girl. But no, of course not. His boots slow near the trough, and he picks something up from the ground with theatrical disgust. You glance up. It's a lump of horse dung. Before you can stand or move or speak, he tosses it underhanded like a game. It hits you square in the chest with a wet slap and clings there, half sliding down your tunic before dropping to the ground with a thud. You freeze. The stables go quiet for a breath. Just long enough for everyone nearby to pretend they didn't see it. He laughs. Missed your heart, he says. You force a smile that doesn't reach your eyes, brush the mess off with the back of your sleeve, and say nothing. You've learned not to talk unless ordered, and you've definitely learned not to talk back. He stands over you, arms crossed, waiting for a reaction. You give him stillness. That's the only defiance you're allowed. Then he points at his boots. They're already cleaner than anything you own. But he lifts one leg, plants it on the trough's edge, and says you'd better polish them with whatever you've got. He adds, tossing your rag into the muck. You have water, but barely. A bucket you hauled from the well 2 hours ago, still warm from the sun and cloudy with silt. You reach for it, but he kicks it over before your hand gets there. The water spills across the stones and into the dirt, gone in seconds. You don't sigh. You don't glare. You drop to your knees and lift the boot with one hand, pressing your other palm against your thigh to steady yourself. Then you spit. A dry string of saliva, useless, thin, and humiliating, lands on the leather. You rub it in with your bare hand, smearing sweat and grit in place of polish. The stable floor is hot beneath your knees. Your shirt sticks to your back. The air smells like manure and cruelty. He wiggles his foot and tells you to do the other. You nod. You reach for the rag he tossed. find it crushed under a patch of damp straw. It smells like old feet and milk gone wrong. You don't gag anymore. That reaction died weeks ago. You wipe the second boot in slow circles while he stands there shifting his weight like he's pretending to be king. When you're done, he doesn't even look. Just turns and walks off, leaving a trail of dust and laughter behind him. You sit there a moment, knees burning, chest still streaked with dung, lips sticky with spit that wasn't even enough to fake a clean. The bucket's empty. The rag's worse than before. You can't wash. You can't scream. You can't rest. So you bow, to his back, to the sky, to the absurd little theater you're trapped inside. Because you're a stable boy. And that means when they need a target, you make yourself easier to hit. The swelling started last night. A dull, pulsing ache where the rat bit you just beneath the thumb. You didn't notice at first, too busy scrubbing piss from the floorboards and dodging the stable master's moods. But by midnight, your hand was twice its usual size, red around the edges and hot to the touch, like something beneath the skin was growing teeth of its own. Now it's morning, and the pain has reached your elbow. Your arm shakes when you try to lift a brush. You drop the curry comb twice before giving up and crouching in the hay, cradling your wrist like a broken promise. You try to pretend it's just bruising, maybe a sprain. But the truth is, your fingers don't want to bend anymore. And when they do, something crackles. Not bone, not tendon, something soft, rotten. You press a thumb to the bite and nearly vomit from the pressure. The center's gone soft. There's a thin line of pus, yellow and glistening like bad butter, trailing down the side of your palm. You suck in air through your teeth and fight the urge to scream. Not from the pain, but from the certainty of what's coming next. You've seen it before, in the other boys. In the one who vanished after a scratch on his ankle turned black. In the one who started talking to walls, babbling about bells in the trees and saints in the rafters, before he stopped breathing altogether. You're not special. You're just next. You stumble into the tack room and sit hard against the wall. Your head swims. The world tilts. The wood grain on the floor begins to move, swirling gently, like it's trying to whisper something to you in a language your bones almost remember. Your breath turns shallow. You taste copper on your tongue, thick and sharp and bitter, like a coin melting behind your teeth. You try to pray. The words won't come. You open your mouth and nothing happens. Your lips move. Your throat works. But your mind is full of static, white noise and heat, and the ghost of a hymn your mother used to hum, long before she sold you off to the stables and stopped saying your name. You fold your hands together, and they tremble like leaves in a storm. That's when the cat appears. The stable cat, soot-colored and silent, slinks into the room like it owns it. It's mangy, patched in places, one ear notched, like it's been through more wars than the knight who leaves his armor out to rust. It jumps onto your lap, circles once, and then climbs your chest with slow, deliberate steps until it's sitting squarely over your heart. It doesn't purr. It doesn't blink. It just watches. You stare back, dazed. Its eyes are yellow and too still, like lanterns in a cave. It knows. You don't know how you know that, but you do. It knows what's happening inside your skin. It knows about the fever building in your spine. It knows the bite wasn't just a bite, that something else got in. Your vision sharpens, then blurs, then sharpens again. The lines of the stall begin to shimmer, bending around the cat's silhouette like it's pulling the world toward it. Colors bleed at the edges of things. Hay that glows too bright, walls that pulse with red, shadows that curl into corners like they're afraid of being seen. You try to reach for something, anything, but your good hand slips against the floor, and the bad one is no longer responding. Your body feels distant, like it's sinking into the straw, molecule by molecule. You're either dying or ascending. You're not sure which would be worse. The cat leans closer. It places one paw on your chest, right over where your heart is hammering too fast. Then it closes its eyes. You wait, mouth dry, throat tight. You think maybe for a moment it's giving you some kind of blessing. A stable boy's last rites. A purring priest in fur. Or maybe it's just measuring the warmth left in your chest before deciding where to start eating. Either way, you don't stop it. You just lie there, shivering, half delirious, wondering if what's happening is infection or enlightenment, if this is what dying feels like. Or if, just maybe, the universe has finally decided to say something back, through a rat bite, and a cat. You're sent to the village blacksmith at midday, right when the sun is at its cruelest and the road is at its dustiest. The stirrup is broken, snapped clean at the hinge where rust met stress, and decided to surrender mid-ride. It's not your fault. It never is. But it's always your job. You're told to take it to town, get it fixed, and return before supper. No cart, no coin, no shoes. Your boots were ruined last week when the pig pen flooded. You asked for replacements and got a laugh in return. So now your feet are bare, your soles hard with calluses and fresh with cuts, and the road into the village is 2 miles of sun-baked rock, jagged gravel, and horse dung that's had time to ripen. You walk anyway. You don't limp at first. Not because it doesn't hurt, but because you're saving the limp for the walk back. The stirrup is wrapped in a strip of cloth and slung over your shoulder like a satchel of shame. It clinks with every step, a constant metallic reminder of your place in the food chain. You pass a few travelers, merchants, farmers, a drunk man arguing with a fence post, and none of them greet you. They see the rags, the grime, the hollow stare, and they step aside like disease is something you can smell. By the time you reach the blacksmith's shop, your heels are bleeding and your ankles are swelling. The heat has turned the road into a griddle and your skin feels cooked. You step into the shade of the forge like it's a chapel, hoping for mercy. You don't get it. The blacksmith doesn't look up at first. He's knee-deep in cow, shoeing a beast that keeps twitching like it's debating whether to kick him or collapse. He's a mountain of a man, sweat streaming down his face, beard crusted with soot and grease. You wait. You clear your throat. He spits a wad of phlegm that lands just inches from your foot. Finally, he looks up. "Oh," he says. You hold out the stirrup like it's proof you belong here. He takes it, turns it over once, then tosses it onto a pile of iron with a shrug. "Wait there," he mutters, jerking his thumb toward a stool that looks like it gave up supporting weight sometime last winter. You sit anyway. The forge is blazing. Every breath tastes like metal and smoke and sweat. Your throat dries, your eyes sting. The cow lowing in the corner is the only creature that looks more miserable than you. You count time by drips of sweat running down your spine and by the sound of the blacksmith's hammer slamming into hoof. He finishes the cow, wipes his face on the same cloth he used to clean a rusted chisel, and finally, after what might be an hour or an eternity, picks up your stirrup. He doesn't speak again, just grunts, and gets to work, heating it until it glows, bending it back into something functional, dunking it in a barrel of water that sizzles like fat in a pan. When he hands it back, it's still warm. He doesn't charge you. He just waves you off. You say thank you. He's already walked away. The walk back is worse. You're tired now, hungrier. The road hasn't cooled, and your feet are no longer numb enough to lie to you. The cuts reopen. Every step feels like chewing glass. You start to limp around the halfway mark. By the last stretch, it's more of a stagger. You return to the stables with the repaired stirrup in one hand and a trail of blood behind you. The stable master is waiting. He looks at the sky, then at you, and says you took too long. He says he should dock your pay for the delay. You remind him, quietly, that you don't get paid. He grins. "Then I'll dock your supper." And just like that, the day has taken another piece of you. Your feet are raw. Your stomach's empty. Your dignity has gone, wherever broken stirrups go to die. But the stirrup's fixed. So you bow, hand it over, and limp back into the shadow of the stable, where even silence feels like work. It's midday, or what passes for it under the gray, eternal cloud blanket that smothers the sky like a damp wool sock. You've been up since before dawn, worked like a mule, been bitten by 3 animals and insulted by 5 humans, and now, finally, it's time for lunch, which is a generous word for what's about to happen to your digestive system. There's no bell, no break room, no meal cart rolling in with steam and kindness. Just a slow, miserable crawl toward the corner of the yard where the stable hands gather to gnaw on their daily disappointments in silence. Your stomach growls with something between hunger and a warning. You sit on a rotting log that was once part of a cart before the wheel gave out and the horse keeled over. The other boys are already chewing. It's a symphony of cracking teeth, slurping mouths, and suppressed gags. Someone's managed to snag a chunk of bread so hard it could serve as a paving stone. Another has a lump of gray meat, possibly squirrel. Definitely regret. You have nothing. Not yet. Then, like a gift from the gods of the gutter, someone drops a turnip. Not on purpose. He tripped. It rolls from his filthy hands and lands in the mud with a wet, sticky thud. He looks at it, hesitates, shrugs, and walks away. Maybe it was already rotten. Maybe he's seen what came out of it the last time he bit in. Doesn't matter. It's yours now. You lunge like a starving raccoon and snatch the thing up before it sinks deeper into the muck. It's half soft, coated in dirt, and something yellowish that might be egg or might be mucus. You don't ask. You wipe it on your sleeve, which is already crusted with everything from sweat to saddle grease to the blood of a flea you murdered in a fit of itch rage earlier that morning. You take a bite. It crunches slightly before turning to paste. The flavor is indescribable in the sense that language recoils from it. It's like chewing on a mildew sponge that's been soaking in regret and stored in an armpit. There's a hint of sweetness, the way rotting fruit sometimes tries to pretend it's still edible, but mostly it's sour and damp and tastes like it knows it's being eaten out of desperation. You chew, you swallow, and you pretend not to notice the small black thing that wriggled between your molars. There's no drink to wash it down, no flagon of ale or cup of broth, just the rain barrel around the corner, collecting the sky's tears one pigeon poop drop at a time. You crawl toward it like a wounded animal and peer inside. The surface glistens with a thin film of something that should not shimmer. There are bugs, many. Some dead, some swimming, some doing laps with tiny synchronized kicks. You could strain it. You could cup your hands and let it settle. You don't. You dunk your face in like a dog. The water is freezing, and as it rushes into your mouth, a small creature joins the ride. You feel it. Legs. Wriggle. Panic. You try to spit, but your throat betrays you, and the thing slides down like a traitor swallowed in surrender. You gag once, then twice, and then just sit there, dripping, hunched over the barrel, wondering how your life became a symphony of indignities performed before an audience of horses and flies. Someone behind you laughs, not kindly. It's the sharp, barked sound of someone who's only glad it wasn't them. You don't respond. You just wipe your mouth on your arm and crawl back to the shade of the stable wall, where the smell is marginally less hostile and the wind doesn't carry the scent of your own shame quite so directly into your nostrils. You try to rest, but your stomach is already staging a rebellion. It churns and gurgles like an angry cauldron, threatening to return the turnip to the earth in a less solid form. You clutch it, not out of love but out of self-preservation. You breathe through your nose, which is a mistake, because something nearby is decomposing with ambition. There is no going back now. The turnip is in you. The bug is a part of you. Lunch has been consumed, and it has consumed something of you in return. You feel weaker, not stronger. Hungrier, not fuller. But the sun hasn't set, and the horses still need feeding, and the stable master still hasn't screamed at you today, which means he's probably saving it for something special. You stand. You burp. It tastes like mildew and failure. Your arms don't feel like arms anymore. They're just meat ropes dangling from your shoulders, twitching every time you try to lift something heavier than a bucket, which is everything. Your legs are wooden stakes, stiff and splintered, and your back is making a noise that definitely isn't normal every time you bend. You've been kicked, trampled, insulted, and ignored. You are 17 years old, and your body feels like it's 40 and decomposing. The ground is always wet. It doesn't matter if it hasn't rained in a week. Somehow, the mud regenerates. It spawns in the corners, seeps through the cracks, leaks from the troughs, oozes out from under the walls like the stable itself is sweating. You try to step around it, but your boots are slick with something that definitely isn't water, and you go down, hard, face first, into a puddle of brown, lukewarm despair. You try to catch yourself, but your hands fail you, and your knees hit first, then your ribs, then your pride. You're barely pushing yourself upright when the mule decides to make a point. Maybe it didn't like the tone of your grunt. Maybe it just hates your face. Either way, it steps sideways without warning and lands a hoof directly on your right hand. The crunch is immediate. The pain is blinding. You don't scream. You just gasp like a fish on a dock and crumple again, pressing your ruined fingers into your chest like maybe if you hide them, the pain won't notice. The mule doesn't even apologize. You sit there, shaking, your palms swelling into a shape that no longer resembles anything useful. Fingers turning purple, knuckles vanishing into puffed flesh, dirt pressed into the open split across your middle finger where the hoof scraped clean through the skin. You don't cry. You don't even curse. You just breathe through clenched teeth and wait for the part where it starts to feel like part of you again. It doesn't. Before you can stand, someone shouts your name. It's not affectionate. It's not even fully your name. Just a noise the others bark when they want something cleaned, moved, or blamed. You turn your head, slowly, because your neck is a stiff rod, and any sudden motion might send you toppling again. A boy, older, meaner, faster, winds up and hurls a rock at you. It smacks into the side of your neck with a wet, solid thunk right below your jaw. The world tilts. You fall again. You don't even brace. This time you stay down. You taste blood and rain and the sour stink of old hay. Your ears are ringing. Your throat is tight. Your left eye starts to twitch and won't stop. You could scream. You could cry. But neither will make a difference. No one helps a stable boy. No one cares if you bleed, unless you bleed on something valuable. So you just cough, spit out a mouthful of mud, wipe your face on your sleeve and push yourself up one slow inch at a time. The pain is background noise now, like the flies and the sneering laughter behind you. You don't look at them. You don't say a word. You just shuffle forward with your ruined hand cradled against your chest like a dead bird. Your back aches with every step, not sore, not tired. Aches, in the way that suggests something important has shifted out of place and will never return. Your shoulders are raw from rubbing against soaked wool. Your thighs are chafed raw. Your feet feel like sacks of broken glass. Even your jaw hurts from the way you keep grinding your teeth, biting down on every sound you're not allowed to make. You reach for a pitchfork and drop it immediately. The weight is too much. Your fingers won't close. You try again with the other hand. It works, barely. The fork is rusted and bent and smells like mildew and rot, but it's yours now. You'll use it to clean another stall, or dig another trench, or defend yourself, if it comes to that. Crying is for people who have soft beds and warm hands to hold. Crying is for daughters of lords and sons of guildmasters. Crying is a signal, and signals are only useful if someone is listening. No one's listening to you. So you go back to work, wrapped in bruises, powered by spite, stumbling forward in the only direction left. Not up, not out, just on. The pony's name is Sugar Plum, which is funny because she once bit the baker's apprentice hard enough to draw blood and has kicked through 2 doors. She's not sweet. She's not even manageable. She's a demon, wrapped in a velvet coat and blessed by the gods of temper tantrums and shin injuries. And yet, she is beloved, because she belongs to the Lord's daughter, which means Sugar Plum gets oats soaked in honey, while you gnaw on moldy turnips and hope the rats don't beat you to your dinner. You've been grooming her for hours, not because she needs it. She doesn't. She's fine. But because the Lord's daughter said she wants her to look glorious. And what the Lord's daughter wants, the world reshapes itself to provide. So you brush until your hands are numb, comb until your fingers are bleeding, and braid her mane into delicate loops that somehow must be perfectly symmetrical. Or you'll get another lecture from the lady's maid, who thinks manners means sneering with longer words. The pony fights you every step of the way. She snorts in your face, flings her head into your jaw, and flicks her tail like it's trying to knock the thought of freedom out of your brain. Her hooves miss your feet by inches. Her teeth try to close on your sleeve. You wipe her nose with a damp cloth that used to be white, and now looks like it survived a battlefield. You polish her saddle with spit and sleeve, buff her bridle with a rag that smells like vinegar and old bread, and tie pink ribbons into her tail, while trying not to imagine wrapping them around your own throat. Finally, the lady descends. She is 12 and walks like she owns the sky. Her shoes are clean. Her dress costs more than your family's entire existence. She regards you the way someone might regard a particularly persistent fungus and barely nods before climbing aboard Sugar Plum with the grace of a drunken goose. You hold your breath. The pony shifts. Her ears twitch. There's a moment, just a moment, when everything is still. Then Sugar Plum bolts. Not far, just a few paces. But the girl shrieks like she's being murdered, flails like a fish tossed on hot stones, and promptly launches herself from the saddle in a tangle of silk and entitlement. She lands in the dirt with a thud and a gasp, and immediately begins to wail, like you personally reached up and yanked her off the horse with your stable boy rage. She's not hurt. Not really. There's not even a scratch on her, but her pride is bruised, and that is apparently a capital offense. Within minutes, you're being dragged by the arm into the main hall by 2 kitchen boys deputized by panic and the vague authority of someone who smells like cinnamon and punishment. The stone floor is slick with spilled wine and disdain. You don't look up. You know better. You keep your eyes down as the lords and ladies chuckle into their goblets and pretend not to whisper. Someone calls you clumsy. Someone else calls you reckless. The steward says something about unsuitable behavior around noble animals. You want to say it was the pony. You want to scream that you spent the entire morning making her look like a tapestry with legs. But you know what happens when stable boys speak in the hall, so you say nothing. The laughter grows. Then comes the worst part. You're dismissed, not fired, which would at least mean the suffering ends, the job ends, the humiliation has some kind of resolution. No, you're just dismissed, waved away like a foul smell in a warm room. You bow, because not bowing is an offense, and back out of the hall like a ghost that no one remembers dying. The courtyard feels colder than before. Your stomach is hollow. Your hand still throbs. You stare at the pink ribbons scattered in the dirt and know that in an hour, Sugar Plum will be hungry again, and no one will feed her unless you do. You don't matter enough to be punished, just enough to be needed. It starts with a noise, not a loud one, not at first, just the dry clack of hooves on wood, like someone tapping a spoon on the edge of a table. Then another, then another. Then the unmistakable scrape of something heavy dragging across the stable floor. You glance up from the feed sack you're failing to lift and see it. One of the Lord's prized geldings, eyes wide, flanks twitching, one front hoof completely bare. The shoe must have come off during training, and now it's gone half feral with panic. You freeze. as if stillness will make you invisible, as if horses respond to logic or pity or prayers whispered through chattering teeth. But it's already too late. It's coming your way, head tossing, mouth frothing, hooves stamping out a beat you're not invited to dance to. You try to move, to sidestep, to flatten yourself against the wall like a roach with social anxiety, but your foot catches on a rake someone left in exactly the worst place, and the world lurches sideways. Then it hits you. The impact is a blur. Pain, heat, hooves, weight. And then you're airborne, a human sack of failure launched directly into a mountain of what used to be oats, hay, and dignity, now processed and steaming in a fresh pile of manure the size of a mattress. You don't land on it, you sink into it. Face first. The smell is immediate, intimate, and so powerful it bypasses your nose and just explodes directly into your brain. And then everything goes black. Not sleep, not rest. Just an abrupt, filthy shutdown. You black out in a pile of excrement, like a particularly tragic cautionary tale written by a medieval god with a sick sense of humor. You wake up slowly. The world returns one horror at a time. The weight on your chest, the wetness on your face, the cold that has sunk into your bones like you're marinating in regret. You open one eye. A rooster is standing on your chest. It's not just standing. It's perched, balanced, judging. It stares down at you with the expression of a magistrate about to hand down a sentence, feathers fluffed and beak tilted, like it's disappointed in your performance as a human. You try to speak. Nothing comes out but a grunt and a dribble of something brown you sincerely hope is mud. You can't feel your left leg. Your right arm is twitching. Your ribs ache like they've been individually punched. The rooster doesn't move. Eventually, someone shouts in the distance, probably about the horse, probably blaming you. You'd get up if you could, if your limbs still answered to you, if your body hadn't betrayed you and joined the stable in its war against your existence. You roll to the side with a squelch that will haunt your dreams. The rooster hops off, dissatisfied. Your face is crusted with things no one should ever identify. Your tunic, once brownish, is now 50 shades of filth. You smell like decay, not metaphorical decay. Actual, organic, barn-brewed rot. You get to your knees. Your vision blurs. The world spins. Someone laughs, far off, and the sound slices through you with all the warmth of a rusted blade. You press your hand to the ground and feel it sink slightly. You are kneeling in the very dirt that lives beneath the horseshoes. Not symbolically, not dramatically, literally. The earth you clean, the filth you shovel, the waste you dodge and fail to dodge. It's inside your clothes, under your nails, in your mouth. You are not just part of the muck. You are the muck. You stagger upright. Your spine pops like firewood. Your nose bleeds. Your pride is somewhere back in the pile, suffocating. No one helps you. A passing boy throws a pebble. It bounces off your shoulder and rolls into the puddle where your reflection used to be. You are not a boy anymore, not a person. You are a smear of labor and stink, a walking cautionary tale for what happens when you're born into nothing and manage to achieve less. The horse is gone. The manure remains. You do what's expected. You grab a shovel. You go back to work. The sun has finally dipped low enough to pretend it's evening, though the heat still hangs around like a vengeful ghost. The sky bleeds orange across the fields, a color that feels suspiciously appropriate as you're summoned back to the tack room with urgency and no explanation. Your legs barely respond now, more memory than muscle, but you drag yourself through the mud-rutted path, each step sounding like it's being made in someone else's boots. You arrive to find a saddle dumped on the ground like garbage. But it's not garbage, it's evidence. Someone's horse got cut. How? No one says. And bled through the leather like a gut wound at a butcher's stall. Thick, dark stains pool around the seams, sunk deep into the stitching, clotted into the padded seat, like the saddle itself had tried to scab over. It smells like meat, left out in the sun and grief. The squire who brought it in just tosses you a rag, sneers something about not letting the Lord see it like that, and walks off, whistling. You don't have soap. You don't have water. What you have is a shirt that was once white and now resembles a discarded bandage. You peel it off your body, the fabric sticking to your skin with a noise you can feel in your teeth, and start to scrub. It doesn't work. It was never going to work. The blood isn't on the saddle anymore. It's in it, pressed into the leather like regret into memory. You rub harder, using your knuckles, your elbows, your weight, anything that still obeys you, until your fingers cramp into claws and your arms go numb. The saddle stares back at you, still stained. The blood won't come out. You shift to wiping it with straw, not because it'll help, but because it's all that's left. You pick the driest clump you can find, but the moment it touches the saddle, the blood clings to it like it's found a new home. The straw wilts in your hands, softens, and releases a stink that makes your stomach turn. It smells worse than the leather now, like mold, old eggs, and death. You gag. Quietly, of course. You've learned to suffer politely. You wipe your hands on your pants. Doesn't help. The blood is on your palms now, in the lines, under your nails. You scrub them on the wall, on your sleeves, on the ground, but it stays. The iron stink of it is in your nose, behind your eyes, stuck in your throat. Your skin is clean enough to crack, but still you stink. Still, the red remains. You try to convince yourself it's not human blood, that it's not some boy who got too close to a panicked mount, that it's not something you'll have to remember when the saddle's back in place and the horse is back to cantering like nothing happened. But you know better. Blood is blood, and it always means something went wrong. You sit back, dizzy from the effort, sweat crawling down your neck like bugs. Your hands tremble, and you flex your fingers just to prove they're still attached. The saddle lies there, damp, not clean, but passable. You'll tell them it's the best you could do. You won't say that it whispered back, that it felt warm when you touched it, even long after it should have cooled. Behind you, the wind shifts. The door creaks open on its own, like the stable's exhaling something it didn't want to keep. You look down at the straw you used and find that now it too smells like rot. You've made everything worse, dirtier, deader. You pick up the saddle and carry it back to the rack. Your arms scream with each movement, but you don't let it show. You just hang it carefully, tenderly, like it might fall apart if you let it go too fast. You stare at it one last time, willing the blood to stop looking so fresh. It doesn't. You walk away with your hands still red. The air in the stable has changed. It's thicker now, rank with sweat, dust, and anticipation. The sun has dropped low enough to cast long shadows across the hay-strewn floor, and every horse seems to know what time it is. Feeding time. The frenzy hasn't started yet, but it's close. You can feel it pulsing in the restless huffs, the stomping hooves, the flicking tails like whips snapping at flies and nerves alike. Hunger has turned them into beasts you don't recognize. Eyes wild and rolling, nostrils flaring at every sound. You're not a boy to them anymore. You're a delay. The oat sacks wait in the corner like cruel jokes. Each one feels heavier than the last, though they've all weighed the same since you first started. It's your hands that have changed, or rather, what's left of them. The blisters are now open wounds, rubbed raw from rope and wood and days without healing. Your palms are leathered, split, slick, with pus where the skin has given up. But you lift the first sack anyway, heaving it onto your back with a grunt that no one hears, staggering like a drunk toward the stalls as the banging begins. The horses don't wait politely. They slam their hooves against the doors, snorting like bulls in heat, teeth flashing every time you pass. One kicks hard enough to crack the lower board, sending a shock through the wall that rattles your ribs. You flinch, but you don't stop. There are 15 stalls and 15 sacks, and every second you waste earns you another minute in hell. You make it halfway before your body finally rebels. Your knee gives out. It doesn't ask. It just folds beneath you like a snapped hinge, and you go down hard. The sack tumbles off your back, splits open, and spills precious oats in a golden flood across the filthy floor. For a heartbeat, everything is still. Then the nearest horse sees it. They charge. 3 stalls rattle in unison. The first gate doesn't hold. The second creaks but stays closed. The third bursts open, and a massive gelding barrels out, hooves pounding, teeth bared, eyes rolling with starvation and rage. You try to crawl backward, but the sack is tangled around your legs, and your hands are too weak to push. The gelding lowers its head like it's going to gore you, then swerves at the last moment, diving into the spilled oats like a wolf into a carcass. Others follow. You don't scream. You can't. All the breath has been stolen from your lungs by the weight of your own fear. You roll to the side as a mare stomps past, her hooves missing your skull by inches, her mane whipping your face. You claw at the dirt, dragging yourself across the floor, nails bending, arms shaking, belly scraping through a slurry of mud, grain, and something that smells like fermented horse piss. You almost make it to the corner before one of them turns on you. It's a young stallion, barely broken, full of fire and teeth. You see him rear back too late. His head comes down fast, jaws snapping, and then sharp, hot pain rips through the side of your head. You scream this time. You don't mean to. It just happens. A raw, broken sound that echoes off the stable walls and is immediately swallowed by the noise of hooves and splintering wood. You clutch your ear. What's left of it? Your fingers come away red. Not just streaked, soaked. You sit against the wall, dazed, watching as stable hands shout and chase, and try to wrangle the chaos back into something resembling order. Someone grabs a whip, someone else throws a bucket. The horses scatter, some back into stalls, others into the yard, oats still clinging to their muzzles like war paint. No one checks on you. Eventually, the noise dies down. The oats are gone. The floor is ruined. Your ear is still bleeding. You don't look too closely. You don't want to know how much is missing. You just press the hem of your shirt to it and sit there, swaying slightly, as the last rays of sun vanish behind the trees and the flies descend to feast on what remains of your dinner, your dignity, and your skin. The frenzy is over, but you're still shaking. You can't remember when you lost the boots. Maybe this morning, maybe last week, maybe they were never yours to begin with. All you know is your feet are bare now, and have been for longer than they should be. Not bare like in a meadow, laughing under the sun. Bare like open wounds dragging through gravel, shit, and rot. Bare like you've been walking on knives dulled only by repetition. Each step is a negotiation. Each stone a threat. Each patch of dry straw a miracle you don't deserve. By now, your soles are more scab than skin. You sit in the shadow of the feed shed, finally off them, just long enough to take stock of the damage. Your toes look like boiled sausages left out in the rain. Swollen, cracked, shiny with bruises and pus. You poke one with a shaky finger, and it doesn't move. It should twitch. It doesn't. You can't feel it. You can't feel anything past your ankle. Your feet aren't yours anymore. They're just meat at the bottom of your legs, dead weight being dragged around like forgotten luggage. You lift your right foot, already regretting it, and examine the arch. There's something black sticking out. Not straw, not cloth. You bite your lip, reach in, and pull. It's a nail, a bent one, rusted, at least an inch deep. You don't scream. You've used up your scream quota for the week. You just breathe through your nose, thick and wet, and stare at the nail like it holds the answer to a question you didn't want to ask. The hole it leaves behind seeps something yellow and sticky. You wipe it on your shirt. Your shirt wipes back with blood. There's no bandage, no salve, no basin of clean water, and a soft voice telling you to hold still. Just you, a sack of horse feed, and the ragged edge of what used to be a burlap bag. You tear off a strip with your teeth. It tastes like dust and mold. You wrap it around your foot as best you can, winding it tight to stop the bleeding, then tighter to stop the movement, then tighter still because it feels like control, even if it's an illusion. The cloth soaks through immediately. You pretend it doesn't. Your left foot is worse. Blisters stacked on blisters like shingles on a roof made of pain. The heel is split open, a jagged crescent of exposed flesh and something white beneath it that you hope isn't bone. You want to vomit, not because of the sight, but because of the smell. It's sour and sweet and wrong in a way that means infection is already here. Not coming. Here. Inside you. Moving up. You lie back in the straw and stare at the rafters. The ceiling leaks. Of course it leaks. Everything leaks here. The walls, the horses, your body. You close your eyes and listen to the drip, drip, drip of water from the beams. It sounds like a clock ticking down to something final. You imagine cutting your feet off. Just stumps. Easier to manage. Less surface area to rot. No more pain. Just the practical horror of crawling. No one's coming to help. No one cares. The stable master won't notice unless you stain the floor. The boys will laugh. The horses will keep shitting. The world will keep turning without a moment of silence for the boy with feet that finally quit him. You sit up slowly, bones creaking like wagon wheels. The pressure in your toes feels like they're about to pop. You test a step. Fire shoots up your leg. You take another. It's worse. But you keep going, limping toward the next task that hasn't even been shouted at you yet. The sun is nearly gone. The night is coming, but not rest. Never rest. Just a colder kind of ache. You drag yourself forward on feet that scream in silence, wrapped in filth, pulsing with fever. You'll lose a toe. Maybe more. Maybe all. It doesn't matter. You don't belong to your body anymore. It belongs to the stable. Night falls like a punishment. The last of the light disappears behind the trees, and the stable exhales something dark and damp. You should be asleep. Everyone else is. The other boys are curled in hay piles and corners, twitching through their bruises, already too tired to dream. But not you. Not tonight. You've been assigned the watch. Not because you're trusted, not because you're competent, but because you're easy to forget. Disposable, if it comes to that. The noble's horse is sick. One of the prized war horses, all black mane and polished hooves, bred for glory and parade and expensive death. It stands now in the far stall, shivering, frothing at the mouth, ribs twitching like something's crawling beneath the skin. You don't know what's wrong with it. No one told you. You're just here to watch, to notice, to take the blame when it collapses. You sit on a broken crate just outside its door, blanket wrapped around your shoulders like a poor excuse for armor. The blanket stinks. You stink. Everything stinks. The air inside the stable is heavy with ammonia and mold, and that sour, coppery smell that always floats in when something living starts dying. The lantern next to you sputters, barely giving enough light to keep the shadows from pressing in too close. You cradle it like a newborn. Your eyes burn, not from smoke but from exhaustion so thick it's become physical. Your lids droop every few seconds, and each time you snap them open, it's slower. You slap your thigh to stay awake. You hum tunelessly, mouth dry, throat raw. Something from childhood, maybe. Or maybe something you heard one of the milkmaids sing to a calf. You don't remember. You hum because silence makes the fear louder. The horse lets out a wheezing snort. You jerk to attention, heart skipping. It shifts in place, legs trembling. For a moment, you think it might go down. And if it does, if it collapses on your watch, you know what comes next. The stable master will roar, the steward will whisper, the lord will scowl. You will be accused, punished, replaced. Maybe not with another boy. Maybe just with the idea that someone had been watching. You rise to your feet, knees cracking, and approach the stall. The horse stares at you through the slats, its eyes glassy, lips pulled back from yellow teeth. You whisper nonsense to it. Words with no meaning. Gentle things, soft things. The kind of things no one has said to you in years. You tell it to stay alive. You tell it you're not ready for another death. You tell it you don't want to be screamed at again. You rest your hand on the wood and pretend it's listening. Time bends. Minutes stretch like taffy. Hours smear together. You count your own breaths. You trace the knots in the wall. You watch the lantern flicker and wonder if the oil will last until dawn. You pray the horse keeps standing. You pray no one checks on you and finds you leaning. You pray that sleep doesn't trick you with a blink too long. The cold creeps in through the boards, through your blanket, through your skin. You can feel it in your bones now, whispering up your spine. Your fingers go numb first, then your toes, which were already half dead, then your face, until you're not sure if your mouth is still humming or just open. You nod off. Just once, just long enough for your chin to hit your chest. You jolt awake, panic, flooding your throat like bile, and whip your head toward the stall. The horse is still standing, still breathing, still sweating out whatever sickness took root inside it. You let out a breath and hate yourself for slipping. Outside, an owl hoots. Inside, something drips. You don't check what it is. You can't afford curiosity anymore. The sky stays dark. The horse keeps shaking, and you keep humming. It begins as a moan in the distance, low and stretched, like something in pain far off in the woods. Then the wind arrives, slow at first, threading through the cracks in the stable boards with fingers colder than ice water. It creeps along your skin and lifts the edges of the filthy blanket draped across your shoulders, whispering in a language that smells like rain and rot. The horses hear it too. They stiffen in their stalls, ears twitching, eyes wide and white. One snorts sharply, and that's all it takes. The panic spreads. The rafters groan as the wind presses harder, louder now, rising into a scream. The entire building shudders, joints popping like bones under pressure. You feel the boards shift beneath your feet, hear the soft whine of nails loosening, of wood remembering it wasn't built to last this long. Dust pours down from the beams in slow motion, settling into your hair, your lashes, your open mouth. A shutter slams against the far wall. A bucket tips over and rolls into the shadows. The horses lose what little calm they had left. They rear, they kick, they thrash inside their stalls like they're trying to claw their way through the walls. Hooves slam into doors, into beams, into the ground. The noise is deafening. Not just the storm, but the fear. Their fear and yours. You stand in the center of it all, blanketed in sweat and dread, and you understand something deeply, completely. If they break loose, you will die here. You move fast, faster than your body wants to. You don't have time for pain. You don't have time for doubt. You rush to the nearest stall and press your hands against the wood, whispering, begging, trying to anchor the gelding inside with a voice you barely recognize as your own. It's shaking too much to be steady, cracking between syllables, but you keep talking. Not because it's working, but because you have nothing else. You croak the horse's name. You think it's Bramble, or maybe Brindle, and hope it hears something familiar in the mess of vowels and desperation. You move to the next stall, then the next. You don't check your hands for blood when they're slammed against a thrashing flank. You don't scream when a hoof catches your hip and sends a bolt of white-hot fire down your leg. You brace. You breathe. You keep whispering. You place your body between the door and the beast behind it like a shield made of bones and bruises. You are not a boy. Not tonight. You are a wall. Walls don't break. Walls don't run. Walls don't cry. Lightning flashes through the gaps in the wood. turning the stable into a flickering nightmare theater where every shadow has teeth. Thunder crashes immediately after, loud enough to shake straw loose from the loft above. The horses scream, and so do you. Not in fear, but to drown out theirs, to give them a sound that isn't thunder, isn't wind, isn't death crawling closer in the dark. You wrap your arms around one horse's neck and press your face to its damp skin, whispering until your lips are numb. Its heartbeat slams against your cheek like a war drum. Your own pulse tries to keep time. You smell piss and sweat and fear, and you don't know which belongs to you anymore. Time melts. Minutes pass, or maybe hours. The storm doesn't let up. The wind batters the stable, like it's trying to tear the roof off with its own rage. You feel the walls bend, but not break. Not yet. You feel your legs shake, but hold. Not yet. You feel tears crawling up the back of your throat like they're trying to escape, but you choke them down. Walls don't cry. The storm rages. You stay standing. You find the corner that's least wet and claim it like a starving dog claims a bone. Without pride, just desperation. The storm has passed, leaving behind only shivering horses and a wind that whistles through every gap in the wood like it's mocking you. Everything smells like wet fur, manure, and fear that didn't have anywhere better to go. You don't remember sitting down. You only know you're lower than you were, that your knees are drawn up and your arms are wrapped around them, and you're trying not to notice the sharp, grinding ache in your spine. Your back has been bent so long it's no longer a posture. It's a shape you've become. You lean against the wall and immediately regret it. The boards are cold and damp, pressing into the bruises along your ribs like curious fingers, and there's a nail poking out just enough to remind you that comfort is something you'll never afford. You shift, slowly, carefully, settling into a position that's more pain than rest but less pain than moving again. That's your standard now, not peace, just the lesser agony. Your stomach growls, loudly. It sounds like a dying animal, and for a moment, one of the horses turns its head toward you, ears twitching. You press your hand to your belly as if that will calm the sound, but there's nothing to press against, just hollow space and air that aches. You haven't eaten since the turnip. That was hours ago, or maybe days. Time's been leaking from your head like everything else. You imagine food now, not because it helps, but because it hurts in a way you can understand. You imagine bread, soft and warm, with crusts that don't chip your teeth. You imagine soup, thick with meat and potatoes, steaming in a wooden bowl you don't have to share. You imagine honey, not a drop, not a taste, a full spoon, sticky and golden, clinging to your tongue like a promise. You close your eyes, wrapping the blanket tighter around yourself. It's soaked through from earlier, rain maybe, or something less innocent, but it's still the only thing between your skin and the night. The wool is rough and sour, like it once belonged to a sheep that died badly. You press your face into it anyway. You pretend it smells like smoke from a fire you'll never sit beside. Sleep doesn't come. It hovers. It teases. It steps close enough for your head to sag forward, for your mouth to go slack, for your thoughts to blur into nonsense, and then it leaves, pulling your breath with it. You snap awake with a jerk that sends lightning down your spine and rattles your teeth. The stable creaks. Something scurries. The horses mutter. You try again. And this time, you slip under just long enough to dream. It's not a good dream. It never is. You're in the great hall, but not as yourself. Clean, clothed, whole. You're carrying a platter, hand steady, head bowed. The table groans under roasted birds, wheels of cheese, loaves stacked in golden towers. You reach for one, and no one stops you. You bite in, and it's mold. Thick, wet, bitter. It crunches in your mouth like rot. The meat is gray. The cheese writhes. The Lord laughs. He sits at the head of the table with a goblet overflowing and eyes that glint like polished coins, and he laughs as you chew and gag and swallow, because that's what you're meant to do. Even in dreams, you know your place. You wake with a sound in your throat, halfway between a sob and a hiccup, and taste bile at the back of your mouth. Your neck hurts. Your back is worse. Your foot's gone to sleep, which is almost funny, because the rest of you never will. You adjust the blanket again, though it does nothing now but trap the cold against your skin. You shift in place, trying to find a new angle of suffering. You are so tired, but there is no space left inside you for rest. Just pain and hunger and the weight of a day that never really ends. It's well past the middle of the night now, that strange, cursed hour, where even the rats have gone quiet, and the air feels thick with things that don't sleep. Your body has forgotten how to rest, too bruised and too cold to remember comfort. You sit slumped near the back wall of the stable, half wrapped in a damp blanket that's soaked through at the corners and smells like old cabbage. Your eyes are half open, not really watching anything, just blinking in slow rhythm with the flicker of the dying lantern nearby. Your mouth is dry, your head is hollow. You've stopped humming. The silence is so complete, it feels unnatural, like the world is holding its breath. You start to drift. Not sleep exactly. Something floatier, emptier, like your brain is pulling away from your skull and your body's just forgotten to follow. Your vision blurs. The edge of the loft, the flicker of the flame, the slow rise and fall of one sleeping horse's ribs all melt together into something soft and gold. Warmth seeps into your bones, just for a moment. You feel weightless. You feel calm. You think you see God. He's coming toward you, glowing, a halo in the dark. A figure haloed in fire and light, staggering gently like he's walking on water. For a second, your breath catches in your throat. Your chest lifts. Maybe it's the end. Maybe you died somewhere back there. Maybe when the horse bit your ear. Maybe when you pulled the nail from your foot. Maybe when the moldy oats choked the last bit of hope out of you. Maybe this is salvation. Then he trips. The light wobbles, sways, swings wide in a lazy arc that lands with a clatter against the stable wall. The glow vanishes as the torch drops to the floor, the flame sputtering against mud and straw. The figure stumbles again, lets out a belch loud enough to wake 3 horses, and braces himself with one arm against your door. You blink. The vision clears. It's not God. It's a knight. And he's drunk. He leans against the wood like he owns gravity, and gravity owes him a favor. His armor is half off, straps dangling like loose teeth, surcoat wrinkled and stained with something that's either wine or blood or both. His sword hangs limp from his belt, clanking against the side of the stable as he fumbles with the buckle of his trousers. You don't move. You've stopped existing, temporarily. Just air and eyes, and nothing in between. Then he starts pissing, right on your door. A full-bodied, echoing stream that splashes across the wood and down into the straw where you sleep, where you breathe. You close your eyes, not out of modesty, but out of some instinct that still tries to shield you from humiliation, even though it's far too late for that. The knight sighs with the deep relief of someone who has never cleaned anything in his entire life. When he finishes, he laughs. Not at you. Not even really with awareness. Just a chuckle to himself, for the sheer joy of being alive and warm and drunk and empty. Then he turns and throws up. Not outside. Not even against the wall. Right into the hay, 3 feet from your feet. A steaming pile of red and yellow and acid that sizzles as it hits the floor. One of the horses snorts and shifts. You stay frozen. The knight wipes his mouth with the back of his hand, smears something across his face, and leans in your direction, finally noticing the shape of a boy in the dark. He grins. You're lucky, he slurs. You serve noble men. Then he stumbles off into the dark, the sound of his boots fading across the cobbles, leaving behind the torch, the stench, and the mess. The air fills with it. Hot, sour, sick sweet, and the piss begins to soak through the straw under your blanket. You stare at the rafters and try to remember what warmth felt like, what clean smelled like, what dignity sounded like when spoken aloud. You get up, slowly, because you have to clean it. You always have to clean it. They're the only ones still awake. Or maybe they never sleep. The mules blink slowly in the dark, ears flicking at ghosts only they can hear. You sit on the feed bin, arms wrapped around your knees, watching them shift their weight and chew nothing. Your mouth is too dry for words, but your thoughts spill out anyway, low and slow like water leaking from a cracked pot. You talk because no one else will listen. Not the boys, not the stable master, certainly not the Lord. But the mules, blank-eyed, silent, smelling like mildew and damp fur, they stay. That's something. You tell them about the dream again, the one with the warm bread and the heavy cloak and the fire that doesn't burn you when you sit too close. You describe the feel of soft wool, the sound of laughter that isn't cruel, the idea of someone handing you something without sneering when they do. One mule shifts, lets out a long, soft huff like he's heard it all before. Maybe he has. Maybe it's his dream too. You've started naming them, even though no one bothered to. The smallest one is Birch, because her fur feels like bark, and she kicks like a falling tree. The oldest is Thomas, though you don't know why. He just looks like someone who's seen too much and trusts too little. The one that stares at you the most you've named Angel, because irony still counts as humor down here. Angel has one ear chewed nearly in half, and eyes that look like they've read your thoughts and chosen not to judge you for them. You tell Angel about the time the baker's daughter smiled at you, years ago, before you stank like rot and sweat and sleep deprivation. How for one stupid moment you thought maybe you weren't invisible, that maybe you could be someone else. She never spoke to you again after you tracked manure through her father's shop. But that second, that blink of light, you carry it in your chest like a dying coal. Angel turns her head, chews on the air, and lets out a long, fluttering fart that echoes off the stable walls like a trumpet at a funeral. It feels like a reply. You laugh, actually laugh. Not the bitter half-sneer that you give the boys when they trip you in the mud, or the polite chuckle you fake when a noble makes a joke about how you smell. A real one. From your chest, it bubbles up before you can stop it, raw and sudden and strange. It cracks something open. And then you cry. Not hard, not loud. Just enough for your shoulders to shake, and your breath to hitch, and your vision to go blurry around the edges. You press your face into your sleeve to muffle it, and when you pull away, the fabric is wet with something that isn't just snot. You cry because you're tired. Because your body hurts in ways you no longer have words for. Because the mules are the only ones who haven't tried to break you. Because tomorrow is coming. Thomas shifts in his stall and thumps the wall with his hind leg. Birch nudges the gate like she's bored. Angel yawns and blinks at you slowly, like a priest withholding judgment. You don't tell them everything. You don't say how scared you are that your feet will never feel again. You don't say how the wound on your arm smells worse now, how the skin is hot and red and weeping something thick. You don't mention that you sometimes forget your own name, only remember the curses they call you when they need something cleaned. Instead, you tell them about a place by the sea you've never seen, white cliffs, blue water, a breeze that smells like salt and not horses. You tell them you'd ride there if you could, bareback, with the wind in your hair and the sun on your face. Angel stares at you for a long time, then turns around and shows you her ass, which is fair. You lean back against the wall and stare at the ceiling. You talk until your throat gives out. Then you sit in silence and let the mules breathe around you like a lullaby. It's the closest thing to company you've had in weeks. And they don't mind if you smell. The stable has gone quiet, finally. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel like peace, just absence. The chaos has settled, The thunder has moved on, and even the wind has gotten tired of listening to itself. You sit on a crooked wooden crate near the back wall, spine curved like a hook, legs stretched in front of you and ankles crossed like you meant to be this way. The wood digs into your thighs, but you don't move. Your body doesn't ask for comfort anymore. It just exists. Your hands rest in your lap, palms up, cracked and peeling. Dirt is wedged so deep under your fingernails that it's become part of you. The nail on your left thumb is bent back, dried blood crusted in a line that cuts through the quick. You don't remember how it happened. You've stopped remembering injuries. Pain has stopped registering as an event. It's just the atmosphere now. The horses breathe slow and deep. Most of them are asleep, heads lowered, flanks rising and falling like the tide of a sea you'll never see. You've fed them, brushed them, talked them down from panic, cleaned their shit from the floor, from your hands, from your clothes, from the back of your neck, where it splashed earlier and dried in a hard little flake you still haven't peeled off. Their stalls are clean, cleaner than you. Their bellies are full. They get to sleep. The stable master is snoring somewhere beyond the tack room, wrapped in wool, drunk on bad ale, probably dreaming about yelling. He'll rise late, bark commands like he's defending a fortress, and squint at you like he's trying to remember whether you're the one who let the mule chew through its reins last week. You'll nod when he blames you, because disagreeing costs more than it's worth. You tilt your head back and stare at the ceiling. It's not really a ceiling, just a patchwork of beams and thatch with holes that let the moonlight through in pale, dusty streaks. A beetle crawls across one. You watch it for longer than you mean to because it has a destination. You don't. There's a puddle near your foot. Not water. You can smell that it's not water. You lean slightly to the side so it won't soak into your last dry layer. You're not sure where the piss came from. Could have been the horse. Could have been the night from earlier. Could have been you. The line between indignity and inevitability has worn so thin it hardly matters anymore. You survived the day. That's supposed to mean something. You were kicked, bitten, mocked, bled, soaked, and starved. But you're still here, still upright, still breathing shallow breaths through cracked lips that taste like hay mold. Your brain is quiet finally, not peaceful, just emptied, like a barn after harvest. Nothing left but dust and broken tools. You don't think about tomorrow. You don't dare. You try to sit still, to hold this second in place, because you know it won't last. The stillness, the silence, the fact that for one sliver of night, no one is yelling your name, or throwing a boot, or blaming you for a broken harness you've never even touched. It's a moment without orders, without spit, without humiliation. But it's not reward. No one saw what you did today. No one saw you hold a fevered stallion's head steady with your bare hands while it thrashed like a demon trying to break free. No one noticed that you haven't eaten anything with flavor in 3 days. No one cared that your foot bled through the rag you wrapped it in, or that you cleaned vomit out of the hay with a bucket of rainwater in your own shirt. You worked. You endured. You gave everything that was asked of you and more than you had. No one thanks you. No one ever will. You let your head droop forward, chin resting against your chest. You could sleep here, just a few minutes, just long enough to forget where you are. But even as your eyes close, you feel it, the pull of another day clawing its way over the edge of the horizon. You survived, but morning always comes. You lie down in the straw, though calling it straw now feels generous. It's more a mat of decomposing plant matter, soaked through with piss, blood, and the kind of filth that no longer has a name. It clings to your skin like guilt and squelches under your shoulder when you shift to get comfortable, which is a joke you don't have the strength to laugh at. Your back is raw from the night's work, your legs stiff as soaked rope, and your head pounds with the kind of deep, slow ache that comes not from pain, but from the weight of having lasted 1 hour too long. The smell is worse than yesterday, stronger, more permanent, like it's no longer around you but inside you, in your nose, in your lungs, sunk into your pores until it's part of who you are. You used to flinch at it, wrinkle your nose, curse the rot and the filth and the sour stench of wet hay and manure. But now it's your perfume, the signature scent of someone no one sees unless something's broken or bleeding. The rats are bold tonight. Not curious, not shy, bold. They skitter across your ankles as you curl in on yourself, dart between the hooves of the sleeping horses, crawl through the shadows like they own the place. One of them stops by your head, sniffs, and moves on. You envy it. Rats can leave. Rats are smart. You've seen one swim through a ditch and vanish into the woods like it had a destination. You don't even have a direction. Your blanket is gone. Someone else took it. Or maybe it fell into the filth and became something less than fabric. Doesn't matter. You've learned not to keep things. Not when every possession is a liability. Not when the other boys look at your crust of bread like it's gold. Not when the stable master says, "You don't need that," and takes it anyway. So you lie there, curled into the wet and the cold and the dark, wrapped only in the last scraps of your own will. You stare at the rafters and think about what tomorrow will be. But the images are too familiar, too close, too obvious. You don't have to imagine. You know. The same cracked bucket, the same barking orders, the same mule that hates you, the same meal that will make your stomach twist with both disgust and gratitude, the same jokes, kicks, bruises, blisters, and silence. No surprise, no hope, no end. Once, there was a fantasy, a vague dream, stitched together from things you barely remember. A bakery, a boat, a girl in a green dress who laughed at something you said before she realized who you were. But it's smaller now, like it's been shrinking every time you wake up. Now it's a flicker. Now it's a word you can't quite pronounce. Now it's a color you can't name. You try to think of that dream, to hold it in your mind for just a moment, but nothing comes. Nothing. You don't even see the sea anymore when you close your eyes. Your thoughts go soft, like wet cloth, folding over themselves until they don't resemble thoughts at all. You're not falling asleep, you're giving up. Slowly, gently, letting the night take you, because there's nothing left in you to resist it. Your fingers twitch once, your lips move without making a sound. Stable boys don't get dreams. Only duties. Only calluses and slaps and things to carry and things to clean. Only whispered orders and the heat of horses and the sharp smell of urine that never washes out. Only long days and longer nights and nothing in between but the ache. You shift once more, settling into the rot. And tomorrow, when the rooster screams, you'll rise again, because that's what you do. That's what you are. You are the one who gets up.